What's up guys, and welcome back to another TK Tech video, and today we're going to be talking about the Samsung Galaxy Fold 5. I've had this phone for over 100 days, and so I'm going to tell you everything I think about it. The first thing I want to talk about is the design. The design is, I guess, probably what most people are going to be wanting to know about, in terms of actually how practical it is to carry around a phone like this. When you first get it, it takes a little bit of time to get used to. It's thicker when folded than all phones really, but it's got the same kind of design material like premium flagship phone. Like, there's no doubt that this feels like and looks like a very premium phone. It's got the glass back, it's got the metal sides, it's using premium materials, but its form factor is a little bit different. So when you turn it on, you think, okay, well, this is quite a narrow display, and actually over time you kind of get used to it. It actually makes it more comfortable to hold in one hand. You can reach more with your thumb, and so you get used to it and you don't really think about it that much. What I find is that when I then compare it to a phone of normal aspect ratio, the difference becomes very, very apparent. And unless you see these two side by side, you don't realize how narrow this phone really is. And so actually, and also how fat it is as well. It does make it a little bit cramped to type on with two hands, especially if you've got fat fingers like I do. But that's when you have the inside display, and we'll talk about that. So although Samsung have done well this year to kind of remove that gap in between these two slabs, they sit flush now. It's still fairly thick at 13.4 millimeters. It's also a hefty phone at 253 grams. You know, in comparison, Apple's largest phone, their iPhone 15 Pro Max, I think is like 220 grams, somewhere around that. So it's you know, even heavier than that, and that's a massive phone. So as you can see, it's kind of like carrying around this brick. But I think personally the features and the functionality that it offers is a good trade-off to have, and we'll talk about those. The screen is obviously the major part of the design. The front screen is a 6.2-inch display, but it's this big display that is why you buy this phone. This is a 7.6-inch display. It's 120 Hz HDR plus with 373 pixels per inch. Basically, it's a very high resolution, very crisp AMOLED display, and it's absolutely amazing to use. When you have it open like this, it suddenly feels so thin and light. As you can see, it barely becomes thicker than the size of the USB port. You might have a question about the crease, and as you can see, the crease is prominent when you've got this direct sunlight hitting on it. When you're inside and you're using normal ceiling light and the brightness is up, you can't really see this crease, and it never really gets in the way of anything. The folding mechanism is just as satisfying as it was when I first got it. Surprisingly, despite its folding mechanism, this does have an IPX rating, which means you can actually submerge it in water up to 1.5 meters for up to half an hour. What I really love about the inside display, and not all folding phones do this, is that it's got these really thin borders, uninterrupted, no hole punch camera. Instead it has an under display camera. If I get an image up, it kind of makes it easy to see. First of all, that gives you a little bit of an idea of the camera quality, but we'll talk about that. Yeah, so as you can see, having no hole punch camera, it means actually the image or video, whatever you're watching, is always uninterrupted. If you look very closely though, you can see the under display camera just above my finger, but you never really notice it, and actually I think it just makes the display look so much better. Alright, so let's look at the features. For the features, the first thing obviously is the convenience of basically being able to have like an iPad mini on the inside. As you can see, it makes everything you're doing, all the content you're watching, so much more immersive, and actually it means that any content that you watch is much bigger than you can ever get on any smartphone out there that's not a foldable. It's also great for productivity. So if you're doing any emails or reading any articles, it just makes it so much more convenient and easy actually to get any work done on the phone, rather than having to take out your laptop, for example. Other features I like to use to utilize the display size are the widgets. So Samsung has some really great widgets, for example with the calendar. So you can access this big calendar, see everything, makes it really helpful and easy to organize. And actually you can go one step further, because if you have the S Pen like I do, as well as obviously being to input, you can actually draw on it like you would on a traditional calendar, and you can flick through the calendars without actually having to go into the actual app. Also, what I really like is Samsung Notes as a widget. Again, you don't have to go into the app to see your notes, and you're able to scroll through without going into the app. However, the biggest advantage of having this big display is obviously the fact that I can fit more content onto it. I'm talking about multitasking. We'll start off with split screening. Split screening is super easy to do. I just have to find the app that I want, open it in split screen, open another app for example, and now you've got these two apps in conjunction, two apps that you can interact with individually, and actually it goes one step further, because when you split screen, it's not about just viewing, it's actually about making these apps work together. And let me tell you something, copying and pasting has never been as easy as just grabbing the image or text and just letting it go. And let's say for example, I then wanted to copy it somewhere else, I can grab it, go home, for example, then open up my messages, go to the person I want to message, let go, and I'll be able to send it to them. Also, split screening doesn't just mean two applications, by the way. You can actually do up to three. So if you open Gallery, I can quickly split screen it like that, and with notes, I can actually, for example, open YouTube and place that as my third window, and obviously adjust these however I want to. Now, another feature that Samsung do that I really like is their window in window kind of feature. So if I just grab the corner, I can adjust the size and the window of the app that I'm using. Let's say this. I actually use this feature a lot. For example, if I want to quickly get a calculator but I want to still be able to see the information behind, I can do that. It also offers another advantage. If you are someone who uses YouTube and don't like the fact that when you close YouTube the video stops playing, unless you obviously have YouTube Premium, then this is a little hack for you. If you open YouTube, put it into this window like this, if you just drag it to the side, it'll kind of put it as a little tab. And as you can see, the video is still playing. So you can do whatever you want on the phone, interact, do your work, go about your business, and still have that video playing in the background without having YouTube Premium, which is a little bit of a life hack for you guys. Obviously, also what I like is that when you have a video or whatever application you've got on the outside, when you open it, it automatically continues on the inside. The default is that when you then close it, it doesn't continue on the outside. But if you go to settings, type in cover and you click on continue apps on cover display, you can choose what apps you want to continue on your cover display when you close the phone. Samsung call this flex mode. So when you kind of have the device either on the flip or the fold like this, they call it flex mode, and they kind of try to optimize the apps to kind of make use of it. So as you can see, when I do it like this, it has the video playing at the top, but then it adjusts this bottom area to kind of become like my control center, where I can fast forward, go back, play and pause, and skip the video. That's been really useful. Surprisingly, it's not a gimmick. Being able to have a stand always with my phone, because my phone is the stand, is something that I use surprisingly every single day. Whenever I'm sitting down in a public area and I just pop my phone like this, open it up, people always ask me questions. It's also useful, for example, when I'm making video calls. I don't have to hold the phone all the time. I can have it like this, set it up, and just be hands-free, which is great. Those are the main features I use of the phone. Now, the S Pen is its own set of features, so I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. But first, before that, I want to talk about the camera. You might have seen my unboxing video. I've talked briefly about the cameras, but I'll go over them again. So we have the middle one actually is the main 50 megapixel camera, and then you have an ultra wide. At the top, this is a 12 megapixel ultra wide, and you have a 10 megapixel telephoto lens. So the images that the main camera produces are obviously very crisp, sharp images. Samsung tend to kind of like to saturate their images, I think, quite a bit. They make their colors very punchy. They've got good dynamic range, so things are not overexposed or underexposed. As you can see, the sky is nice and blue, but you can still see the street lit up. The ultra-wide, although it's a lower megapixel, it still looks good, and it tends to look good because it kind of makes everything look like you're taking it from really far back anyway, so you don't need that much detail in an ultra-wide. The telephoto, though, I tend not to use too much because it's a 10 megapixel camera and I can see the difference in the quality. It's also got very good macro capabilities, so you can get very close up to the objects and take nice sharp images there. The video quality is also very good on this. If you want to know how that looks, all you have to do is go back to the previous couple of videos that I've made. Those are actually all shot and recorded audio on this device. Now the front cover camera and obviously the inside display camera are much worse. But while the front camera is still an acceptable 10 megapixel camera, this is the camera that I would use for selfies. This is the camera that I would use for making video calls. However, if you really wanted a high quality selfie, you can actually use the front cover as your preview display. So you can use those back cameras as your selfie. The inside camera, unfortunately, is very grainy. It does very poorly in low light, but I would only really ever use that again for video calls, never to actually take a picture of myself. So one of the advantages of this phone and having such a big display actually is that it's compatible with Samsung's S Pen. So I'm going to talk about the features of the S Pen because I think it's definitely worth highlighting. This is the S Pen case that I bought with the phone. It holds the S Pen. At the back of it, it's actually a very thin, small S Pen, much smaller than last year. As you can see, I think Samsung do sell the S Pen separately if you want to get like a bigger, higher quality S Pen, but that doesn't fit in a case, and I knew if I got that I would never carry it around anyway. Because the display of this is more fragile, I guess you could say, Samsung make their S Pen for their folds a little bit different. And what I mean by that is their nibs tend to be a little bit more rounded and less precise than, for example, you'd see on the Samsung Galaxy Ultra series. Anyways, let's test out the note-taking features. Samsung do like well, I kind of enjoy it. It's their like paper-like sound effects. Surprisingly, it's not uncomfortable to hold. Not only I think is it great for making notes, it's also really good for highlighting text that you have. So for example, if you are reading an article, it does let you quickly highlight things, circle things, and I think it's just a really useful tool to have. Now the S Pen actually also unlocks certain features that you don't get access to otherwise. So if you click the button on the S Pen, you got these additional features on the side. For example, magnify lets you above the display and actually magnify the text or whatever image you have underneath it. You also have translate. This lets you hover over any piece of text and actually translate it directly. So for example, if I switch from English to French, I can hover over a text like this and then it'll tell me what that translation is. It'll also do full sentences as well. So that apparently is screen time, and I can copy that text. It also has a really cool feature called glance. For example, let's say I've got my gallery open. If I go on glance, it will put it into this bottom corner here. So now I can use my phone normally, and wherever I hover over it, it will automatically open up that application. That's great, for example, if you are an artist and you're sketching something and you're copying it off a picture that you've taken, you can draw, hover over it, see it, and go back to drawing. The final S Pen feature that I actually personally like to use myself is the Smart Select. This lets you select anything, so I can select a piece of text or image or anything like that, and I can do several things with it. I can either save it, or what I like to do sometimes is pin it. So let's say I have trying to send someone money and they've sent me their, for example, their bank account number. So I'll do this, have it in the corner of my screen, and I'll go to my banking app, and instead of having to constantly switch apps, I can quickly see what their account information is and transfer them that way. Okay, so the final section that I want to talk about is performance. How is the performance of this device? Well, you've seen me multitask a lot. You've seen me open up all these applications, without any glitches or anything like that. This phone is currently using the newest Snapdragon Gen 2 processor. It's also got 12 gigabytes of RAM. 12 gigabytes of RAM, what that means is that you can have all these applications open without them closing and having to restart. That's really important, especially if you're playing games. So for example, we'll load up some Call of Duty. I absolutely love playing video games on this device. Look how good that display looks. The processing power is more than enough to play these high graphic intense games. I play this on the highest settings possible. The device does heat up a little bit from the back, but it's never been a problem. It's never caused the performance to slow down. And as you can see, it runs this game without any problem whatsoever. That higher RAM means that when I do go out of the application and go into something else, there's enough RAM to keep that application running in the background. So if I do go back onto Call of Duty, it doesn't restart and I'm back to where I was. Now, one part of the performance that I want to touch upon is the battery life. That's obviously very important with any device. Obviously with the device this thin, this small, that has two displays, it does drain the battery. Now the device does last the whole day, but not more than that. If you get any of Samsung's other devices, you'll get more than a day and a half. If you really want to stretch it, 2 days. Depending on how I'm using it and what I'm using it in that day, I'll get a screen on time of about 4.5 to 5 hours. I tend not to be able to push more than the 5 hours of screen on time. Alright guys, well that's me with 100 years. That's me with 100 days of the Samsung Galaxy Fold 5. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it's given you an insight into actually the real life application and use of this phone. There are some definite drawbacks to it, obviously being the shape of it, the aspect ratio, the weight, but I think this display, for me personally, is worth all of the drawbacks, and I don't see myself going back to a standard phone, to be honest. I would like to see the day where Samsung incorporate the S Pen into the phone. And let me know if you guys use any of the other features of it. Let me know what you think of what I talked about in this video. Does it appeal to you, or does it put you away from it? Leave all your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. And with that, I'll see you on the next TK Tech video.